cigarette that smoldered in its tray. Down a little something, then be on my way. I traveled far and wide, laid this head in many ports. I was guided by a compass, I saw beauty to the north. I drew the tales of many lives and wore the faces of my own. I had these memories all around me so I wouldn't be alone. Some may be from showing up, others are from growing up. Sometimes I
What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Crush Live Call-ins. I am your host here, Bart Hansen, and the phone number is 323-348-1281. 323-348-1281 is the phone number. We've got a couple of open lines, but it probably won't be for that long. Looks like we've got 4 or 5 people on hold right now. So always looking for first-time callers. We depend on you for the show. And then usually we will make YouTube videos about the hands that you call in for at a later time. So let's get into it here. Try to go in order as much as possible. Looks like we've got the first caller here. It's 480. 480 out of Phoenix, Arizona. You are up first, sir. Hello.
Hey, Bart, how you doing?
Good.
Good. All right, so I'm in Phoenix, and I have a hand from Talking Stick Casino.
Okay.
It's a 2-3 spread limit game.
Okay.
$300 cap.
Cap on the bet, you mean, or just cap on the buy-in?
Yeah, so it's a $300 cap on the bet and the buy-in.
Okay.
All right, so in this hand, I have pocket aces.
Okay.
Ace of diamonds, ace of spades.
Okay.
So there's an under the gun plus 1 limp and an under the gun plus 2 limp.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm in middle position with 2 aces, and I raise to 18. The button flats, the big blind flats, and then under the gun plus 1 calls, and under the gun plus 2 folds.
So you're up against 3 players.
Right.
Okay. UTG 1 limp calls. Okay. All right. So it looks like the pot's about $72, right?
Right.
Okay.
All right. So the flop comes Queen Jack 4 with the queen and the 4 being clubs.
Queen Jack 4 with 2 clubs. What kind of aces did you say you had again? What are the suits?
Ace of spades and ace of diamonds.
All right, cool. So Queen Jack 4, 2 clubs. Okay. So you've got an overpair here. Obviously, looks like you're in position, right? Well, there's one guy in the button, but then you've got a blind and then you have a blind and then somebody else, right?
Right.
Okay.
So there's a big blind on the gun plus 1 and the button and me.
Okay, hold on 1 second. I've got to do something here. Oh, wait a minute. All right, let me do this real quick. Gonna have to lock this puppy up here.
Conference locked.
All right. So Queen Jack 4, 2 clubs. What happens? Does it get checked to you?
Yeah, so the big blind checks and under the gun plus 1 checks.
Yep.
And then I bet 55.
Okay. Hero bets 55, and everyone's got about 300. Is that right? Basically.
Yeah. So I have 650 to start.
Mhm.
The main villain has just bought in, like it's his first hand, so he has 300.
Okay.
And everyone else is between like 2 and like 4.
Okay. So you bet 55 into a pot of what looks like about 72. Okay.
Right.
Yep.
So the button calls, the big blind calls, and the on the gun plus 1 folds.
Button calls and big blind call. And then a fold.
Right.
Okay, cool. So pot's now about maybe, what, 230, something like that?
Right.
Okay.
So the turn is the 10 of spades,
Okay.
and this time the big blind leads for 80.
Okay.
I mean, this kind of spot, like I've been put in before, like I think it's obviously just a call, but like I'm just wondering what you think when someone like check calls the flop and then just bets leads on the turn.
So how much money does this guy have left, basically, in his stack?
So he started with 3, and then he called 73, so like 227.
So he's got like 200, yeah, just over 200, and you've got him covered, and the pot's like 230.
Right, and
Yeah, this one's tough because you got the guy behind you too. He made such a small bet. I would say usually you're actually behind here, to a lot of two-pair types of hands, and it's really a weird spot because you do have a gut shot, right, to a king, and then you've got equity against two-pair. I don't know, occasionally if somebody might do this with like king-queen, but everybody usually is scared the pre-flop raiser has ace-king. So when somebody check calls the pre-flop raiser and then leads on the turn on a 10 when ace-king comes in, it's very, very concerning. Now you're getting about 4-1, and there's a guy behind you, and it is low stakes. So I'm not saying that I would necessarily fold right now, but I think you're beat a lot here. I mean, you only need 20% equity here on the turn to make the call. You could have as many as 10 outs or something like that with one card to come. I would probably call, but I don't like it. And if he had bet larger, I might even consider folding with a guy behind you. It's obviously much easier to continue on when there isn't a guy behind you. You don't have the ace of clubs in your hand, so somebody could have the nut flush draw too. But I'm very concerned here when somebody check call leads on a 10 turn.
Okay, so it's usually not a bluff, right?
No, not. I mean, what bluff? What bluff could it be? Like, what's the bluff here?
Like some
King 5 of clubs or something like that. King 5 of clubs, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So my plan was to just like I'm gonna call it here and then like pretty much look to fold bad river cards.
So you ended up calling. What did the guy do behind you?
It was a woman. She called too.
Wow. Okay. So the button calls 2. So now the pot is like another 240. The pot's like 500. This guy only has like 150 left, something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah, like 140, 150. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What's the river?
So the river is 8 of clubs.
Oh Jesus. So it puts a one-liner to a 9 out there. Front door clubs. I mean, you've got a pretty trivial fold now to any bet from any player too here. I mean, this is just a. If he bets again, you fold, and then if you check to the button and the button bets, it's pretty much a fold too.
Right. Yeah. And so he just rips it.
Okay.
For the rest. So he goes all in, and I pretty much just fold pretty
I hope you
quickly.
folded. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And then the button folds too.
Okay.
I think I'm not really like too concerned with like the river, like what to do on the river. I just I see it a lot, like check call flop and then lead turn, and I'm just like kind of wondering what people do in that spot. Like why just check call flop and then lead turn? Why if I'm bluffing you, like why wouldn't you let me just like keep continuing with my bluffs? You know what I mean, on the turn? Like what are they really afraid of, I guess?
Well, I mean, it's tough to get in the head of like low stakes players, but it's not actually necessarily the worst play though too, because I mean you could bet ace king here, I guess, into 3 people because you've got 2 overs and a gut shot to a 10. I wouldn't probably advise it on this board. So if I'm in your opponent's spot here, and let's say like I turn 8-9 of clubs, or I turn king 9 of clubs, or something like that, or I have like queen 10 or something, I actually don't hate the lead because a lot of times you're not putting more money in, and you don't really have ace king. So people will check through the turn here a lot. So the guy's kind of short. He doesn't want to get it checked through, and he just bets. But, like, you're not – what are you bluffing with on the turn? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, you're saying, well, why would he lead the turn? But check call leads are I mean, it depends on the hand and the specifics of the hand. This hand's much, much different than, the board coming out, queen deuce 3, you raised and your head's up against the big blind called, and then he check calls and then leads like a 9 turn, like queen deuce 3 turns a 9. That's way different.
Pretty dry.
Well, not only that, but your head's up. Yeah, this is much different than somebody betting what is the ultimate scare card in the sense that if you were, c-betting with ace king, it comes in. That's why I just don't even think this is really, I mean, you're not really ahead on the turn. Like I said, you're getting turn pot odds, and I see some wacky shit at these levels, so I'm not saying that I would fold, but the actual check call lead turn line isn't the worst play. Or say that the guy was slow playing like a set of 4s or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, he just doesn't want something to come through at the end. Do you follow me?
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought too. Like, it's he has like a really big hand, or I think it's more like he has a really big hand. He just wants to kind of get value, or doesn't want to see a club or something like that.
Exactly. One-liners or something like that. So you never found out what the guy had?
The kid next to him said he had the ace of hearts. So I mean, I don't know.
The ace of hearts?
Yeah, I don't know, kind of like maybe ace 9. the only kind of thing I could think of.
Yeah, but how does ace nine bet the turn? How does ace nine call the flop with the ace of
Well, I mean,
hearts? The board's queen jack
yeah.
4. You see bet into 3 people. Ace nine
Like you said,
is gonna
like you
call.
said, they do crazy things at these, like you said, these these levels. So
I mean, yeah, that's true. I mean, I guess, but I like I said, I don't think you did anything wrong. Thanks for the call, guys. I locked the conference up, and we might have some time for some other calls at the end. But right now, you're gonna have to wait towards the end of the show. I am in the live chat here too, and I want to give a shout out to Jamin Burton, who is of course a CLP subscriber, and he's got a great video. He's got a great video vlog on YouTube. If you're into that sort of thing and you like vlogs, you can check him out. You can just do a search on Jamin Burton. What's up to him? Deep Stack Gary Jacobson, what's up over there in the live chat? And anybody wants to ask me questions in the live chat, I'll do the best that I possibly can to answer them as the calls go on. But let's take the next call here, which is going to be 704, which looks like a new, I don't recognize this number, so this is a new caller. I'm trying to get all new callers in, so some people might have called the show earlier and I disconnected them because I know that maybe they called last week or something like that. So we try to get new blood in here. 707, you're up next. 707?
Yep.
Hey, how's it going? Who's this? Hello?
It's going good, Bart. This is Brandon. Hello?
Hi, Brandon. Are you a first-time caller?
I am a first-time caller. You and I have played a little poker together at Stones Live. We played some Omaha together.
Oh, okay, cool. Are you together with Bald Head?
The dude with the bald head?
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, so you were like sitting in like seat 7 or something like that. I did a Crush Live 08 video on 2040. You were playing in the 2040 game, I think, that I commentated on, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I
know exactly who you are.
All right, cool. I have a no-limit hand for you.
Okay.
So this is from California Grand. They run 2-2-3 game.
Okay.
So they run a 3-blind game.
Yep. Okay.
And effective stacks with the main villain is 1,000.
Okay.
The max buy-in for the game is 300.
Okay, so you guys are pretty deep.
We're pretty deep. Yeah.
Yep.
Free limpers to me, I have ace-8 clubs in the cutoff.
Mm-hmm.
I raised to 18. The limpers are under the gun +1, middle position.
Yeah, I got to say, this looks to be just right off the bat a pretty good candidate, I feel like, to over limp. Once there's 3 people who've limped in front, I mean, usually the motto, I mean, the games I play in, there isn't a ton of limping. But, you know, I'll play 5-5 while I'm waiting. And I've been playing a lot at Hollywood Park, so it's a 500 cap game. So it's kind of, you know, small and restricted stacks. But once 2 people have limped in, I usually take the approach of raising in position with the same types of hands that I might raise from like the first 2 positions with for value, like maybe like 8s or 9s plus, ace queen plus, ace jack suited, king queen, ace 8 of clubs. I would just like to over limp, especially with 3 limpers, because I mean you make it 18, so it's 6x. I'm assuming that there's a very good chance everyone's going to call. And yeah, you're going to have position, but I mean, ace-8 of clubs, it's just kind of, I think it plays a little bit better as an overlimp. Now, if you want to bomb away and make it 30 or something and try to just take down the limps, obviously you can do that too, but my default here would be to overlimp. But okay, you raise it to 18.
Small blind calls and the 3 limpers call. So you're right, everyone pretty much calls.
Okay. So small blind calls, all the limpers call. So you're going to see it 5 ways, 4 other people, right? So it's about 80.
So there's 95 in the pot.
Or 90, okay. Okay.
And the small blind is the main villain in his hand, and someone I was actively trying to play pots with.
Mm-hmm.
Had been playing with him for a while, felt like he overvalued 1 pair hands and would just bomb away and trying to give his money away, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Flop is ace, jack, 8, rainbow.
Ace, jack, 8, rainbow. So you've got top and bottom.
Correct.
Okay.
Checks to me, I make it 65.
Okay.
Small blind calls, under the gun calls, under the gun plus one calls, middle position folds.
So 3 calls.
Calls.
So it looks like the pot is probably right around maybe 300 or so, just a shy under 300.
Right around 350. So we got 270 plus the 90, so 360.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, because there's 3 people that called. Okay. Go to the turn.
Turn is a 3, and it puts, I believe, 2 diamonds on the board, but pretty much irrelevant.
Okay, so turns at 3 of diamonds, puts a backdoor flush draw out there. I would start to look at what suit, if someone could possibly have backdoor diamonds here, in what position. Obviously, ace X of diamonds, maybe jack X of diamonds. It's less likely, if the 8, it would be less likely that somebody has 8X of diamonds here. But anyways,
right. And I don't remember. Yeah, I don't remember the exact suit of the ace.
Okay.
But it's somewhat irrelevant because the small blind rips it in for 900.
And so the small blind moves all in. I'm assuming that the 2 people in front of you fold.
The under the gun player goes all in for a short stack of about 160 to 175. And
Okay.
then under the gun plus 1 tanks for 3 minutes before finally folding.
So the pot's going to be 900, 1,075, 1,425, about 900 for you to call. If I did the math out here, 900 plus 175, so 1,075 and 350, 1,425, 900 for you to call.
Right.
Boy, this looks a lot like on the turn. So, I mean, it is very relevant. So you're saying you don't remember the distribution of the suits, right?
I don't. This hand was a while. It was a hand I've thought about and asked a lot of different people about, and just wanted to get your opinion on it. I really don't remember the exact suits.
I wouldn't fold. I mean, I'd like to obviously do a graphic of this hand for a future video. So probably Pete can put up, like, say for example, let's just put up that the 8 is a diamond. So it's ace jack 8 rainbow with the 8 of diamonds. So it's possible someone can have ace X of diamonds, someone can have jack X of diamonds, and somebody can have Broadway or 9-10 with backdoor diamonds. But the diamond coming on the turn is very relevant because that's what it really smells like to me. I mean, you block pocket 8s, right? Pocket jacks, I guess, is possible. There's got to be some sort of frequency of 3-betting. I feel like from the small blind when it goes limp and you make it 18, I mean, it's possible, and I'm not sure how often he would play it like this. So, yeah, there's maybe...
3-betting's pretty rare in the game. A lot of people choose a flat, like 10s and jacks and 9s out of the blinds and see if they can flop a set.
I don't know, man. It just seems to me like the other guy in the middle is kind of irrelevant, except, he might just have an ace, but I can't make these folds at this level. I mean, I know it's a large bet. You're getting about 1.5 to 1 here. But so you need to be good here like 40% of the time, and I would probably call because of that backdoor diamonds. I mean, it's probably pretty close, and again, I don't really see these kind of gross overbets all that much on the turn, so somebody could convince me and say that this is always value, and, this guy plays it like this because he's got like pocket jacks or something. I could sort of see that. I'm just saying that I would probably call. I'd have to have some real background here to make this fold at this level. Some people in the live chat are saying that this is ace jack plus always at 2-3. It could be. I mean, it's just one of these things where you have to know sometimes what certain things mean at a certain level, and at 2-2-3, it's, it can be a spaz, but it's a big bet. But if you were to ask a lot of high stake players, they would say slam dunk call. Maybe some low stakes guys would be like, well, from this guy, it's always value. I think it's pretty close. I personally would call. What ended up happening?
I ended up folding. I tanked for probably close to 5 minutes in real time. It's probably the longest decision time-wise, I've ever taken in a hand, and someone actually finally called the clock.
Okay. Again, it helps if the 8 of diamonds the board has the 8 of diamonds in it because he can have ace X or jack X of diamonds. If the ace was a diamond on the flop, then it'd be a little bit less likely. But there's still a bunch of combo draws, though, too. King, queen suited, king 10, queen 10, queen 9, and then the pair plus draws that pick up on the turn. So, I mean, I could say that there might be as many draws as value hands, even if he plays value hands like this, which would probably make it lean towards, with the pot odds, a call. I mean, you'd have to do kind of stove it out, but what ended up happening? You folded?
I folded. The end of the gun just had a draw. The guy who called the 175 and small blind showed ace-3 offsuit.
Oh, yeah, that's another one, too, that I didn't even realize. What about ace-3? That's a crazy overplay. So he turned aces up, right?
Yeah.
So small blind has ace-3. That's a good little hand. So obviously that sticks with you because of the fact that you would have won, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, I was certainly tilted when he turned it over and then immediately racked up and cashed out. That tilted me even worse.
Yeah.
But it was just one of those hands where, I did all the thought process. It didn't make any sense for him to have a huge hand there. Like, why would he just rip 900 into 350 with ace, jack, jacks, eights, threes? I was like threes was the only real credible hand.
Yeah, that's not how is three. Yeah, but threes isn't really credible. I mean, he gets checked to you on the flop. The board's ace, jack, 8. He's gonna check call with pocket threes, with three people to his left.
It's something, but like I said, he had been doing really crazy stuff. He was someone I was trying to play a huge pot with. I did on the spots, played a huge pot.
I mean, if he's a crazy guy,
it's a monetary decision.
If he's a crazy guy, right, and you want to play big pots with him because he's nuts, I would snap call. Yeah, I mean, you didn't add that history in there, so I mean,
it wasn't crazy. It was just more of I'd only played for him for about 2 hours, but had seen enough to see where he was overvaluing some one pair type hands. And kind of value timing himself. I had certainly not seen anything remotely close to this. But it's certainly one of those hands that has stuck with me, and just something that I kind of eliminated eights, jacks, and pretty much had him on ace, specifically ace, jack.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Brandon. That's a good one. We'll definitely use that one. Thanks for the call. I appreciate it. Before we get to our next call, I just want to answer some question in here in the live chat from Jamin. He says, "Hey Bart, I've never played 5-5 in LA. How does that compare to the Vegas 2-5 game?" 5-5 in LA is kind of an interesting breed because of the fact that you've got different cap restrictions in different casinos. So, for example, where I play quite a bit at Hollywood Park, the game is really a joke, but it's a 500 cap. I think that's the best $5 blind game in LA. Commerce has got the same structure, but it's just a zoo there. They're very recreational games. Then you have you can play at the Bike or Hustler where it's a 1K cap game. So most of Vegas, from what I remember, 2-5 is always at least 1K cap, right? Up to 1,500 sometimes. So that Vegas game is going to play tougher and it's a larger game. Whereas the LA 5-5 games, especially at 100 BBs, are softer. The drop is large. It's more recreational. So I don't even consider those really the same level. Now, if you want to play 1K cap games, that starts to be, I think the Bikes game is really good. I just played maybe an hour of 2-5 1K at Aria before they opened 510. I mean, it seemed like it was whatever. But it will probably be softer, I imagine, because there are more bigger games in LA. Just the 1K cap 5-5 games are probably going to be softer just because the better players will play higher. So I hope that answers your question, Jamin. All right, next caller is going to be 918 from Oklahoma. You're up next. 918?
Well, I just happen to have a 100 BB cap in history for you.
Okay. Where does it come from?
That's the theme of the night. This is Windstar.
Yep.
2-5.
Oh, there is their thing is 500 there at Windstar?
It's a 100 BB cap at all the small stakes games.
Okay.
2-5, 1-3, 1-2.
Okay.
So we are in the small blind with 2 black deuces.
Okay.
I have $800.
Okay.
And the main villain covers.
So 800 effective in the small blind with deuces. Okay.
A player in early position opens for 20, which is the standard. 2 field callers.
Okay.
In middle position.
Yep.
The button calls.
Okay.
And we complete for 20 with deuces in the small blind. I think that's pretty standard.
Yeah, of course.
Pretty much everybody was over 500.
Yeah,
Not
I would
a
definitely.
Lot of shorties.
Sure, I would definitely. I mean, the only time that sometimes you can muck small pocket pairs in the small blind facing what you think is maybe a tougher player when they open. I think that's something people just auto call in that spot, but it's really, it's the same type of thing. Like if you're in a tough game, you're not really playing a whole lot of small pocket pairs from the first couple spots either. If you don't want to limp
I think
them.
one of the considerations I had was the opener was a very sticky player and a very aggressive player.
Okay.
Who would definitely stack off with overpairs.
Sure.
So
that obviously leads you to calling. So it looks like you see the pot 5 ways, right?
And the big blind completes.
Oh, and the big blind. Okay. So 120, 6 ways. Okay, cool.
So kind of the theme of this hand, and one of the things I've been trying to work on in my game, I try to play very fundamental, somewhat GTO poker, even though the WinStar 2.5 is exploitative city.
Sure, of course.
One of the things I want to start working into my game are leads, especially in these multi-way pots.
Just lead outs, yeah. Well, that's the problem with I mean, that's not a problem, but if you do a lot of the work that's equilibrium solving with the GTO stuff, it doesn't. It's too complex. There's no solutions to multi-way pots, so you got to figure it out on your own.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the flop?
I feel like sometimes I miss a lot of value in that. So the flop is queen, 10, deuce.
Okay.
Obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Queen, 10, deuce, rainbow.
Okay.
And I check.
Okay.
The original, the big blind checks. The original raiser bet 60.
Just one quick thing before you tell me what happened. So EP does bet to 60, just because I know that you were saying, like, you were asking about when we should lead. So I would probably check here on this type of board quite a bit, if not almost always, because it's going to hit people, even if it's not the pre-flop raiser. You know what I mean? Like, there's going to be a bet here on the flop. It's almost always. The times that I lead in multi-way pots when I flop sets are usually on kind of raggy boards where I don't necessarily think the pre-flop raiser is going to auto bet, especially if it's multi-way, and I don't want someone to fold to a check raise, and I think I'm going to get a lot of decently light calls if I just come out and lead, because what I've found is a lot of people at the smaller levels, they kind of lead with mediocre hands on those boards, so you get called down light. So when you think about a board where you're going to lead, you think about a type of board where it's not going to be all that often that the pre-flop raiser is going to make a continuation bet if he doesn't have anything, and also if somebody in the field bets, their hand doesn't usually fare to be all that strong, or it won't be all that strong across all streets. The board is, I guess they say, somewhat dynamic, right? Like the board's going to change. So if the board's going to change, then I tend to lead in these multi-way pots with sets. But on this particular board, I definitely don't have a problem with the check.
Okay, yeah, I kind of have the opposite feeling where I feel like I can get a lot of value on this kind of board with so many players where the original raiser is going to have ace-king sometimes, 2 overs and a gut shot, probably at least call. A lot of the field players will have a queen or straight draws. There's 2 open-enders, king-jack and jack-9. That make up a lot of the range.
Yeah, but I would rather just make a small check raise though and get more money in the pot. I mean, that's why I would check. Do you see what I'm saying? I mean, I don't think that bleeding is bad by any means. You know what I'm saying? But nowadays, you just don't see people. You're not going to see what it used to be back in the day when I started playing No Limit, like in 2005. You could just lead your sets because the pre-flop raiser had like an overpair. They would just raise and then call off like a bet 3-bet all in. You don't usually see that nowadays. So leading doesn't accomplish building the pot up. Do you see what I'm saying? As much because people will flat a lot. So anyway, so you check EP to 60. He bet 60.
60. One of the field players, I'm pretty sure he's in the low jack. We'll call him. He's in the low jack. He calls.
Okay.
And the button calls.
So it's over to you. Right. 60, 120.
Now,
yeah. So
I think we have 3 options given our stack size of 780 behind
Yep.
effective.
Mhm.
I call the trap obviously, but then I think we have like a couple raise size where we can kind of make that annoying smaller raise to like 150, 160,
Mhm.
or do more of like a bigger pot size raise to maybe like 250, 275.
Yeah, I don't really like a pot size raise, and I also definitely don't like calling. And the reason why I don't like calling is because, well, I mean, obviously in general, fast playing usually gets you the most money at this level. The problem with calling here is that, like, you could, if I were to handpick times when I would just check, when you could sometimes have a check call range with bottom set here, it would be more shorthanded and more heads up against the preflop raiser, against a guy that might value bet, continue to value bet, or bluff. The problem here is that, let's just look at the example that the preflop raiser doesn't really have anything strong, or you see bet ace king, and then maybe two people call with king queen, or like one person call with king queen, one person call with like queen jack. Okay, because and if you overcall here in the small blind, a lot of times at this level, the people that have those top pair types of hands, if it gets checked to them on the turn, even if the turn's like a brick, like a 5, because the board was rainbow too, a lot of times people are going to check that through. All of a sudden, the pot's getting scary for them with one pair, right? The pot, now all of a sudden it's $360, close to a full buy-in at this level, and you're just not going to see guys continue to put money in with king, queen, or queen, jack because they don't want to get raised. So that's why you're sort of forced to raise in this spot, because a lot of the one pair hands that you want to get value from on the turn are not going to bet because they're scared of pot size. Now, I wouldn't make this 250. I think I would probably make it like 175. You know what I mean? Or maybe, 150 to 175, something like that.
Okay. Well, I
Yeah.
made it 150.
Okay.
And I mean, I am a semi-experienced live player, but definitely play like a lot of online poker. And I put out a black chip and 2 green chips.
Okay.
And it folds to the button. 2 calls.
So preflop
Two
raiser
covers, two
folds,
covers.
low jack folds, and the button calls.
hmm
Okay. Any info on the button at all?
Older Asian guy who I would say can get a little sticky, but played pretty kind of ABC.
Okay, and you're 800 effective with him, so you guys have about 600 left, like a pot and a half bet left, something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, I'm definitely trying to go for the max.
Sure.
So
It's going to be
the
very hard
turn
for you.
is
It's
not-
going to be very hard for you to fold here. I mean, obviously the obvious draws here are king jack and jack 9 that are strong enough to bet call. So, a 9 coming, an ace coming, a king coming, sometimes an 8 coming are the ones that are a little bit hairy. But even still, though, it's not like I'm going to check those turn cards, because a lot of the hands that a guy will have with queen X are going to pick up straight draws, and they're going to continue to call you, right, on those cards. So
Yep.
it's kind of interesting. What's the turn?
The turn is an 8.
Okay. Rainbow or
Off to
what?
8. So the
Yeah.
rainbow complete.
Okay.
So obviously Jack 9 gets there,
Right.
but there's 2 open enders.
Right.
I feel like the button's range still could have a lot of king jacks. Could
Mhm.
have even just a naked queen that, seeing that he's closing the action on the flop. He's like, okay, if this guy does have a draw, I'm gonna take a heads up with him.
Yeah, I mean, I would just bet an amount where I don't want like king queen to fold. Like I said, queen jack picks up a gut shot now. So say you bet half pot here. So if you bet half pot, which would be about 200 or a little bit over 200, I'm trying to think about the math coming back around 6, 8. If he shoved, the pot would be like 14, 600 to call. It's going to be very difficult with these. This is sort of, even though in essence you're 180 big blinds deep, right, for this hand, people don't realize the way that these games play, and your hand's a good example of, like, yes, the math, you're 180 big blinds deep, but you don't, it's kind of different. Like this hand is really, really exemplifies live poker in that you're not in the traditional sense that deep because of the multi-way nature of the pot already, right?
Yeah.
4x times 5. Like you never see that online. So it's almost like you're shallower. So it's very difficult for me to probably get away from this hand. I mean, even if you bet half pot and the guy shoves, like I said, you're going to get about 2.5 to 1. With the set, you need 10 outs, obviously. So, you probably need 3.5 to 1 mathematically. So if you bet 2 and he shoves and he shows you that he has Jack 9 because like he doesn't want the bad beat, then obviously you can fold. But it's even pretty close to getting the correct price anyways. So what did you do? How much did you bet on the turn?
I bet 225 on the turn.
Yeah, so you're gonna get into that spot. Yeah, if he shoves.
Yeah. And that's the one thing I thought back on was like, okay, can I either bet, because like you said, I'm in that kind of milling spot where I'm almost getting the price.
Yeah.
To draw it to the boat. So would you ever like bet bigger there or bet smaller?
I think it's fine. I just think it's you're just sort of handcuffed here. It's just how can you get rid of bottom set moving to the turn on a non-flush board with a pot and a half bet left here. It's just, I mean, yeah, there's straight draws, but I mean, it's not like it's a front door flush draw or something like that. I just think you're a little bit handcuffed.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the biggest considerations was like being a rainbow board. Like it's just so hard to have a ton of draws. Obviously, there's straight draws.
Yeah.
Like good straight draws with high cards, but
I mean, I like your sizing here. I really do like your sizing throughout the whole hand. Some people were like check raise more and then rip the turn. I mean, I disagree with that. You don't want a queen to fold out. I mean, again, the pot's right around 420, and we've got about maybe 600 or so, or maybe 630 left. So you're dealing with about a pot and a half size bet. So you bet 225 and the guy shoved, or what?
He calls.
Am I right here that the pot is? Oh, the pot is actually 540, right? I'm sorry.
Yeah, something like.
I had written 420, so the pot's 540. So you have less than a pot size bet left. Yeah, you're even more handcuffed. So you bet 225, and he calls. Okay.
Yeah, and he calls.
Okay. Yep.
So the river's an interesting card.
So the pot now is 990, and you've got about what 350 left or something like that. 225.
220 plus.
Maybe 400. Yeah.
Yeah, something around 400.
Okay.
And the river's a 9.
River is a 9. Wow. Okay. So now there's a one-liner to a straight out there.
Yeah, one-liner to a jack.
So you've got about between 1/3 and 1/2 pot size bet left. And there's a one-liner here to a jack. I imagine that this is probably going to be a check at the end. And I can't, and you're somewhat protected here a little bit by your stack because people don't turn hands into bluffs really a bunch at this level. So he's just going to check back everything that's not a straight, I feel like. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so I checked.
Because
I just feel like it's so, I mean, obviously I'm hoping he has like a slow played queen 10. Maybe like I thought like the weakest hand he'd call there on the flop, like going back to pre-flop and flop ranges, is like queen jack. Like it's kind of hard for him to have queen 9, but maybe queen jack, which obviously gets there.
Yeah, I mean he could have king queen, but yeah, there isn't a whole lot that you really beat here. That's why like it's obviously it's the worst card in the deck for you, which means that it's not really a bet. It's probably a check fold. But again, I think you're protected by the fact that I can't really come up with bluffs if he moves all in that you can beat. So you check, and did he move all in or what?
Yeah, he jammed for my 400.
So check, all in for 400. So the pot is about 1,400, 400 to call, something like that. 1,400, 400 to call. You're getting about 2.5 to 1 here. I just can't really invent a hand here that this guy can have that doesn't contain a jack in it 1 out of 3.5 times. I mean, obviously sometimes we make laydowns like this and then he shows some sort of weird hand, but again, at this level, just leaning back in my experience and especially doing a bunch of commentary on Live at the Bike at this level, you just don't have to worry about somebody betting a hand like even Queen 10 for value thinking that they have the best hand. And they're just going to check everything back that's not a jack here.
Mhm.
And I can't really think of many bluffs, so I would probably fold.
Yeah, so I ended up full. I mean, I tanked for a while, right? I mean, you flop a set in live poker, and
Yeah.
I feel like so many players are just so ready to just pile,
Mm-hmm.
especially on a rainbow board. But yeah, I mean, just going back to the fact that I look so strong check raising flop. I think that's actually one of the things that gave me a lot of protection was that I just don't think I'm going to get bluffed there.
Yeah.
Even on like a different run out. Like I look so strong that, yeah, my hand is kind of face up, but at the same time, like it's hard for my opponents to kind of like play back at me.
So what happened? Did
So
you ever
if
find out what he had?
Oh yeah, he showed me Jack 8.
Jack 8. Okay, so he had a gutter. So you made the right laydown. So he had a gutter on the flop, turned a pair, and then made it at the end, right?
Yeah.
Then what's wrong?
Which
I don't
I
think he
didn't
did
really
anything
think-
wrong.
Yeah, which I didn't like put him in his range, right? So maybe going forward, I play against this guy a decent bit, so
Yeah.
going forward, I can see him being a little bit looser.
Mm-hmm.
He was getting like a decent price on the flop. I don't think his play was like terrible, but yeah, I just think in
Well, I mean, his play
small-
of calling is pretty bad on the flop to the initial bet, right? I mean, he's peeling for a gut shot to the non-nuts, but not only to the non-nuts, but to a legitimate other hand that straight draw that can have him dominated, right, with King Jack.
King Jack.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, that's pretty bad. Not even an overcard, right, to second pair. I mean, to top pair. So I think he played it bad on all streets. But thanks for the call.
Yeah, I was just worried about the flop and turn sizing. Thanks for helping me out with that. Appreciate it.
You got it. All right. 2 more callers here. Here we go to Kansas, 913, Kansas City. Are you really from Kansas City, Kansas?
I am.
I love Kansas City, Kansas. I've been there a couple of times. Love the barbecue there. Tuckman and I have gone several times. I went to see the Patriots actually get annihilated by the Chiefs a few years ago on a Monday night game. If anybody remembers that, that was the one where the famous press conference afterwards where Belichick was like, "We're on to Cincinnati. We're on to Cincinnati." And that was the year the Patriots won the Super Bowl against Seattle. And I think that was in 2014, I believe. And we went to see a Royals game after that. And it looked like the Kansas side of Kansas City was a really nice area to live, affordable, good public schooling. I like the place. Anyways.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, this hand actually takes place in St. Louis.
Okay. St. Louis, not so much. But
yeah,
Kansas
no.
City.
I was visiting over there, visiting my fiance at the time, but at the Ameristar St. Charles at
Okay.
a 1-3.
1-3.
This is actually my first hand. I buy him for 300, the max.
So it's a 300 cap.
300 cap.
Okay.
And I am under the gun +2,
Okay.
and I look down at ace king of diamonds.
Okay.
I have so I raised to 15. That's pretty much my standard open
Okay.
in some of these games. I mean,
By the way,
sometimes
this is
I'll go
another example here too, and that's probably what is the standard open, but what I was talking about with the previous guy, if the standard open is like 15 and then when there are limpers, people start adding, say, $3. So
Yeah.
like if somebody limps in, people make it 18. If 2 people limp in, they make it 21. Mathematically, yeah, you're starting with 100 big blinds, but it's not really the case in the true sense of the word because of the initial 5x open and the nature of the multi-way pots that happen at this level. So it's much more restrictive. So the ranges
That's
should
what
be a little bit wider, obviously getting in than looking just from afar at what your stack size is with what the big blind is.
and that's one of my questions is that beginning when I started getting into poker, I started at more like a traditional like 3 or 4x,
Mm-hmm.
and I was getting like almost the whole table to call, and I
Yeah.
wasn't thin the field as
Mhm.
much as I'd like to. Is that something that I should make? That's just some bad variance that I had at that time, or is 5x still a good starting spot? That's kind of been my sweet spot. That's been standard for me, but I just wanted to get your thoughts.
I think 5x is probably fine because of the fact that people tend to have again, like probably a static calling range to a certain amount up to a certain point, meaning that like you probably want to raise an amount with your hands that you want to raise for value, um, up to what people will call. And if people are going to call with like queen nine offsuit to 3x, then you're just losing out by not raising to 5x. Again, that's to a certain point. Now, obviously, if you raise smaller, there is a little bit more maneuverability, like in an advanced way. Like the post-flop stack depths are deeper. So if you want to kind of like bluff later on, you leave some of your stack open to, kind of fooling around with small sizing. But in general, in a $300 cap 1-3 game, I would say 95% of the game is two things, right? Pre-flop hand selection and value. Like you're not overly concerned with like running huge bluffs in this game. So because the value trumps the bluffing by quite a bit exponentially, then yeah, you just want to raise an amount that people will call.
Okay.
So all right, so you make
get,
it 15.
The cutoff and the small blind call.
Okay.
Flop comes 9, 4, deuce, 2 diamonds.
So it's three ways. The pot's 45, right?
Or 48 because the big blind folds.
Okay, and what's
48.
the flop?
9, 4, deuce, 2 diamonds. The 4 deuce of diamonds, if I remember correctly.
Okay, so you flop the nut flush draw with ace king.
Yes.
Okay.
So I lead for 35.
Okay.
Cutoff folds. Those small blind calls. The small blind check to me.
Okay.
I bet cutoff folds and the small blind calls.
Okay.
So the turn is.
And everybody's got 300 effective, right? Is that right?
Yeah.
People start with 300.
Covers.
Okay.
Yep. So the turn is the king of spades.
Okay, so you turn top pair and you've got nut diamonds. That's actually that's an interesting card. I mean, it's a good card for you in the sense that it's a strong. I mean, you have the best hand here a lot. It's also a good barrel card as a bluff. Like for example, if you would start betting the flop here with like ace queen of diamonds, ace jack of diamonds, ace 10 of diamonds, maybe you had raised with ace 5 of diamonds, which is a flush draw and a gut shot. You're going to be barreling this turn quite a bit. You know what I mean? It's just bad for the small blind's range. But on the flip side, it's actually, even though it gives you the best hand, it's not the greatest card for you now because it's bad for the small blind's range.
Right.
So
that's kind of what was my thinking. He checked to me again, and I bet 65.
Yeah, I was going to say I would just size down now if you're going to bet. Like maybe you might even be able to I think you could probably bet 40 here.
Okay.
Because 65 might get folds and stuff from nines, things like that. But I might even size a little bit smaller. Also, too, just the added value that if he happens to be on a smaller diamond draw, you don't want him to fold, although guys probably don't fold anyways. But okay, fine. Small blind check, you bet 65.
Yes.
Okay.
And he calls, and
so small blind calls, right? So the pot now is about, we'll call it 250. It might be a hair less. And you guys have about 200 left in your stack, right?
Yeah, about 180.
180 left in your stack? Okay.
About, if I remember, about 180.
Yeah.
So the river is a total brick. Like, doesn't complete a straight, doesn't complete the flush. I mean, it's absolute brick. And he checks to me again.
Well, when you say it doesn't complete a straight, you mean so it's probably like a 6 or a 7 or an 8? Is that what you're saying? That's a brick? Because it can't be like 3 or 5.
When it was I've seen some guys show up with like 3-5 on
Uh-huh.
the flop, king 9, 4 deuce.
Right.
So I was thinking that there's a small chance you might have 3-5 of diamonds. Like I've seen that just kind of where I neglect the straight on a flush draw board.
Right, but you're saying that the straight did not come in here, right?
No, it did
Okay.
not.
So
It did
let's
not.
just call this like a offsuit 7 then.
Yeah, it was like an offsuit 7. It was something like that. It was like an offsuit 7.
Okay.
And he checks to me again.
Okay.
And in my head, I don't know what I beat. Like what's going to call me, like that outside of maybe like king queen. So I didn't want to size too much. I sized to 95.
So you bet 95 into about 250, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fine. I mean, you might even go a little bit smaller. It's just really difficult for the small blind to have something that's strong here. Because I feel like they're going to raise off a good portions of their sets on the turn. They're just going to check raise all in. So if we're looking at the river as a 7, there's just, I mean, I guess you can occasionally lose to some sort of weird 2-pair. But you should have the best hand here, which means that you have to bet. I thought you were going to say you were considering checking back the river, and it's just
Well,
I don't know.
I thought it was way too weak.
Yeah.
But he ended up snapping me off with king 9 offsuit.
So he just check called the turn?
Yes, just check called the turn.
Okay. I don't think you did anything wrong.
It was just one of those hands where I felt like I in the moment I was like, it's way too weak to check the river.
Mm-hmm.
But after the fact, I talked about this with some of my better poker friends.
Yeah.
And there were some mixed feelings as to what are you getting called by there that's going to check call 2 streets, that's not going to bricked out and just fold unless you're just going to like jam a check raise bluff, which rarely happens.
Right, to induce. I mean, listen, your hand is actually slightly you'd rather have aces here, or you'd rather have ace king without a diamond in it, so that he could have king x of diamonds. Or here you do block some kings, but still, you still have to bet though. I mean, if you bet the flop and you run into like top pair, especially when you run into a top pair that's not an ace, like say the turn was like a queen or something like that, you do have to probably go for multiple streets. Just make them small. Checking back here, ace king, I think would be a disaster at 1-3. And I always say that if you don't, I don't know if you know what value own means, but value own means is that you bet with a hand for value, right? That's worse than your opponent's hand, and they call you with a better hand. But the thing about the math of value betting is that when it gets checked to you on the river, when you bet, right, you have to have the best hand more than 50% of the time when called for it to be, a positive EV bet. It's a complex scenario because that in itself isn't 100% correct. It should be more like 60% because it will have something to do with sizing. But let's say that we're targeting the thinnest parts of our range where we're going to bet with a hand when called that's good 60% of the time. And then we start from there as our value bets. If you see these old guys who are nits, right, that never bet the river unless they've got a super nut hand, when they bet the river for value and get called, they're good 100% of the time or 90% of the time. Do you think that that's good to be good 90% of the time when you value bet on the river?
No.
No, of course not, because if they're good 90% of the time, that means that they're losing value between 60 and 90. Whereas you would be betting with a certain hand that's going to be good when called 70% of the time, they're checking it back. So if you're at that 60% point, then when you bet for value and get called, you're going to lose sometimes. And for all you guys that are new to poker or low stakes, if you're always betting for value on the river, and when you get called, you always have the best hand, you're not value betting thinly enough. And there is variance in that how often that you value own yourself. And it can be quite extreme sometimes. There seems like sometimes there are sessions where I'm constantly value owning myself, but it doesn't mean that anything's wrong. It's just like getting a bad beat, you know?
Yeah. I've been really getting a lot better at getting some more thin value, knowing when to. But this was one of those spots where I guess I had a session where this session kind of went rough. Like when it came to value betting, I was getting trucked, and I was really analyzing this session. Was I going too thin in some spots and stuff like that?
Well, anyways, thanks for the call. I appreciate it from Kansas City. We're going to do one last call, and that will wrap things up here for this week. By the way, I am commentating on Live at the Bike on Wednesday night, which is going to be a 5-5, 300 to 1K cap game. So, Jamin, if you want to take a look at that game to get yourself a little bit of fill on what LA 5-5 games are like. And then the following week, I'm actually going to be doing with Ryan Feldman, I think it's 5100 No Limit with Phil Hellmuth, Antonio Esfandiari, Randall the producer, and a couple other fun guys. And then I'm actually doing a PLO game that night on Wednesday. I'm also playing on Live at the Bike on Thursday this week, if you want to check it out, in the ante game, which plays like between like a 10-20 and a 20-40 No Limit. Last caller here, 210. Can you turn your speaker down in the background, please?
Sorry, is that better?
Yep.
Okay, sorry about that.
No worries.
Okay, this is a 1-3 game. I'm sorry, 1-2 game. Southern Oklahoma.
1-2?
Yeah, 1-2.
Southern Oklahoma. Is this not WinStar? Is it Choctaw?
Not WinStar. It is Choctaw.
Okay. So 1-2. No, I have been to Choctaw. Actually, they're playing my Poker Night in America episodes right now on CBS Sports Network. People get a lot of that. The people see me on TV from Choctaw. They're a year behind. I mean, I went to Choctaw in October of 2016. So 1-2 No Limit Choctaw. What is the buy-in? 200?
1 to 3.
1 to 300. Okay. 1 to 300 buy-in.
And the two main villains, both are in the neighborhood of 450 to 500.
Okay.
And I have them both covered.
Okay.
We are all 50 to 60-year-old. 50 to 60-year-olds. Villain 1 is a known contributor to the game.
Okay.
Crazy.
Okay.
Villain 2, don't know a whole lot, but the game that whole day was crazy.
Okay.
I am under the gun.
By the way, do you ever see are there farmers that play? Do you ever see guys coming off of tractors and stuff? I'm serious, because I played in a farmers game in upstate New York, and I don't know, for some reason sometimes I think about that in Oklahoma too.
Not so much farmers here, but you do have some ranchers.
Ranchers, okay, fair enough.
Okay, coming in from the cattle auction,
yeah,
etc.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Okay, so go ahead.
Okay, I have Ace of Hearts, Jack of Hearts. I am under the gun.
Okay.
I am called by a middle. I make it 17.
Is that about about the standard open in the game?
Kind of high standard.
Okay.
Some days, if I make it 10, I probably get 5 callers.
Right. Okay.
Especially the way the game's been running.
Mm-hmm.
I make it 17. I get actually 3 callers, middle position, low jack, and the button.
Okay.
So we've got, about 65 or so in the pot.
Okay, yep.
I lead out. Oh, I'm sorry. The flop comes King of Hearts, 10 of clubs, and 8 of hearts.
Ace, Jack of Hearts you have, so you've got the nut flush draw. You've got a combo draw, right? Nut flush draw, gutter to a queen.
Yeah.
And you also have the ability to actually pick up an extra gut shot here with an 8 coming out too on certain cards, or you can pick up open-minded with a 9 or 7. It looks like, so a little bit more backdoor. So big hand, $65. Most likely you're not going to be able to get this continuation bet through, but I feel like your hand has got so much equity here that I don't mind obviously betting to even build the pot up here a little bit. So it sounds like you bet.
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I actually let out 40.
Okay. Yep.
The middle position folded.
Okay.
The low jack called.
Mm-hmm.
And the button thought about it for probably about a minute and a half, 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And makes it 150.
So the button makes it 150. I would imagine that this usually represents a 2-pair plus type of hand in your game, I would imagine, like 10-8 plus. Like, no one's doing that with just king queen, are they?
Well, normally, no.
Uh-huh.
But once in a while, someone puts something in the Kool-Aid in this room, and it goes nuts.
But, I mean, I think the play for you here is, like, really easy. It's 100% just call because I don't, you know, that's another thing, too, if people are new to Crush Live Poker in my work, you know, it's something that I've talked about in the past. I don't know if you're a subscriber to Crush Live Poker, but I have this thing that I've talked about called aggressive action theorem, which is usually something that is applicable to the lower stakes, not so much anymore at the higher stakes. And what the aggressive action theorem says is that if someone raises post-flop, they're not going to fold. And I feel like in this spot, like, you're not going to get the button to fold if you just move all in. And one of the mistakes I see a lot of people make at these smaller levels is they're like, I've got ace jack of hearts, let me just rip it in because, you know, I can't be that far behind. And while that's fine, it's probably not necessarily negative EV. I think a better play is to just call here. Obviously, it depends a little bit on the stack sizes too, because if you call, you know, the pot will be 365 and maybe you only have 300 left. And then if you check turn and he moves all in, I mean, with a...
Well, let me add, if I call,
mm-hmm.
I think the low jack is a 100% call. I play.
Well, that's good for you, right?
Him.
You want the low jack to call because you're figuring in that the button has some sort of made hand, right? You've got the nut draw. So if you're up against a made hand and you have the nut draw, you want extra calls, right? In between. Okay. You actually want the calls. So did you, it sounds like you called?
No.
Oh, okay.
I have I have an extremely solid reputation in that room, which has allowed me to actually perhaps, and that's what's gnawed at me about this hand.
Yeah.
Because I felt like I overplayed it.
Okay.
And I actually jammed all in.
Well, I mean, like I said, for the same reasons that I just said, I think probably jamming all in is, with your hand, it probably can't be that bad. But I do think that calling is a little bit more, is a better play, especially with what you just said, that because you get that extra dead money from the low jack. So I think calling would be a better play. Now, if you tell me that the button has a raise fold button where, like, he could make it to 150 and you got him to fold, then great. Then maybe raising all in is the best play. But on paper here, I would find it very hard to believe that the button is going to raise fold you when he's raising on the flop after you, the under the gun raiser, continuation bet this board. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I get it. I totally get it. Like I said, I felt like I let my reputation get a hold of my ego there.
Yeah.
And I thought I'd make them both go away.
Uh-huh.
Well, as played, like I said, I jammed it.
Yep.
The low jack folded.
Okay.
After much thought about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the button actually went in the tank.
Really? Wow.
And yes.
Yeah.
He told, which I was really happy not to get a snap call.
Yeah.
But he went in the tank and then eventually did call.
Uh-huh.
The turn was my salvation. The turn was the 9 of hearts.
Now wait a minute. Let me just, before you even get to what the river. Well, it sounds like you made the turn, but I'm trying to think of what hand tank calls after raising in this particular scenario. I mean, I don't think 2-pair tank call. I mean, I guess you could be getting nit rolled. I don't know. What's your name, by the way?
My name's Mark.
I don't know if you know what nit rolled means, Mark, but he might be just thinking about it, even though he was always going to call anyways. Like, if he has a hand like 10-8, he might be like, oh, do you have pocket kings? But he's still never going to fold. So it could be that. I'm trying to think. Or I guess maybe it could be king-queen, which is probably a worse hand that he can have. I don't know. It's close. I don't know if 10-8 or king-queen has more equity against your hand, but like I said, I wouldn't really expect a guy to raise the flop with king-queen after you show that much strength. But anyways, so you made the nuts on the turn. What was the river?
River was inconsequential. It was like a 3 of clubs.
So what did he end up having?
I don't know.
Okay.
The middle position made all sorts of noise about the fact that he had a queen high flush draw and how he would have had me. I said, not quite, as I showed the hand.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other guy basically just turned on his heels and left.
So you think that the low jack had a flush draw too, in between?
Oh, the low jack absolutely had a flush draw.
Okay, so you can see how. I mean, listen. I mean, the thing about that though is that so he had 10x of hearts. You said queen 10 of hearts. So the thing about that though is that I mean, it's not. It's a little more added value that you might be able to overflush somebody, but I mean, you have to think about the chances that someone else also has a flush draw and the heart comes in on the turn is very unlikely. Like the planets have to sort of align, but it is one of the reasons why I would call though quite a bit. Again, the two reasons why I'm not a huge fan of the all-in is that I don't think you have fold equity against a raise post-flop here in this spot, and you just want the low jack to come in with extra dead money in between. So if you had called and the low jack called, you would have gotten at least the low jack's money. Who knows what the button? Maybe the button would have gotten away from it. So, but that's an interesting hand. I actually played a hand, not in the same. Thanks for the call, by the way. It sounds like you were a first time caller. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, but enjoy the heck out of it, and I'm probably going to soon be a subscriber.
All right, cool. Well, thanks for the call. One quick thing. One of the things I'm going to go over on my podcast, and I'll actually link right now a quick thing. If you're in the YouTube chat, I'll link to you where I post up on. So in Crush Live Poker, we have forums, and I played this kind of crazy ass hand. Where, I mean, I certainly got lucky, but that last caller actually reminds me of what the hand was, or it reminds me of like overflushes and stuff like that, where I got a guy basically. Let me see if I can pull it up here so I can link it over. But three people had flush draws. I had raised with 9-8 of clubs under the gun. I'm going to link it here over in the live chat. I had raised with 9-8 of clubs. Actually, you know what? I think I can get this over here. Oh, no, I can't. I don't have the picture. But I had raised with 9-8 of clubs from under the gun at Hollywood Park. And avoid the 9-5. Matt called. I'm going to actually post the hand here in the notes so that everybody can see it. It's kind of an interesting hand. Let's see if this will come up here. Here we go. So let's take a look at here. This hand is kind of interesting. So 4,500 effective. Try to make it a little bit bigger. No. Okay. 4,500 effective Hollywood Park. 5-10-20, right? I opened 65 with 9-8 of clubs. Under the gun 1 calls. Fishy rec calls and the cutoff. MJ. Avoid the 9-5 and MJ are the old Live at the Bike commentators. MJ calls. And the board comes out 6-5-3 with 2 clubs. So I flop a flush draw and a gut shot to a 7. I bet 150. Matt calls. Cutoff raises to 400. I thought he was going to be very, very value heavy here. Small blind folds. I call and Matt calls. So the pot's 1560. Turns the 7 of hearts. I check, Matt checks. Cutoff bets 1,200. I move all in. Matt folds queen 10 of clubs. And the cutoff snap calls and has king 4 of clubs. So he has a straight with king 4 of clubs. I, of course, have the nut straight with clubs, and Matt had queen 10 of clubs, which is very rare that you see that. River came out a brick, and I won a $10,000 pot, which was sort of nice. But it does, obviously, it does happen, and the guy almost fell out of his chair when he saw what I ended up having, which was pretty crazy. But I'll probably go into that more on my podcast for tomorrow, that comes out on Tuesdays. But thank you guys once again for joining me in the call-in show. We do this every Monday at 4:45 Pacific time, and we always are looking for first-time callers and stuff too. So if you want to give it a shot, put it on your calendar. 4:45, 7:45 Eastern time is when we do this show. And I'll be around a little bit in the live chat here for a couple minutes. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.